Now I want you to think about this for a second. If something you spray will kill a bad bug, why wouldn't it kill a bee? What's up, Lazy Dog fam? Hope all y'all are having a wonderful day. It is Thursday, May 1st here in South Georgia. And on today's video, we're going to talk about 5 gardening lies that have to stop. Maybe lie is a little bit of a strong word, but we're talking about 5 different thoughts or ideas or suggestions, strategies that I see all the time in comments on our videos or in other stuff on social media, stuff that just really isn't true. And I don't know why people keep proliferating these ideas, but hopefully we can try to put an end to them. So let's jump right in with number 1. And if I had $1 for every time I have seen this comment below one of our videos, I could probably buy me a couple new pair of tennis shoes. So we see it all the time. People say, if you use mulch, you don't need irrigation. Now, a lot of these lies, I'm not quite sure of the origin, but this one, I'm pretty sure of the origin. So years ago, many people watched that Back to Eden documentary. I'm sure many of you have seen it. It's a pretty good documentary. I enjoyed watching it myself. But in that documentary, if I do remember correctly, the guy talks about his gardening technique and how it eliminates the need to water. But you have to be very careful with a statement like that. Just because a plant is living doesn't mean it is thriving. So yes, mulch will improve water retention in the soil, but it doesn't eliminate the need for watering, especially in a climate like mine. Now, some of you out there will say, how do you even know you don't use mulch in your gardens? And we'll get to that in a minute. But there's a good reason I don't mulch my vegetable garden. That has a lot to do with the fact we grow so many cover crops and we're always rotating things, moving things around. And I don't really like to move mulch out of the way each time I plant a different crop with a different row space. But I do use mulch with some of our perennials here around the house. We use pine straw because it's readily available around here. Got some daylilies planted here. Got these from a friend of mine who owns a daylily business in Tennessee. oaksdaylilies.com. Y'all go check them out. He sent me some plants a while back, do a trial for him, and it's pretty hard to kill a daylily, but these daylilies will live just fine underneath this mulch here without any additional water. But they will bloom and look much better if we give them some water every now and then. And I think that's where a lot of the confusion comes from sometimes, perennials versus annuals. Yes, a perennial, you can put some mulch around it and it will usually survive and be fine. We put mulch around a tomato plant down here and don't give it any additional water, it's going to struggle and more than likely might die, especially in a period like we've had recently, about a month without any good rain. So mulch can be your friend, but don't let it be your crutch. You're probably still going to have to water those annuals to get them to thrive. All right, lie number 2, this idea that we should emulate nature in our gardens, that a forest ecosystem is the perfect situation, that we should try to emulate that in our vegetable garden. Now, it is true that we want to have a strong community of good microbial life in our soils, but I hate that example of the forest floor saying, oh, this is what your vegetable garden should look like. And I hate that example because a forest floor is not going to grow veggies as good as my garden soil does. If you don't believe me, next time you have a few tomato, pepper, extra vegetable plants left over, go plant them in some woods near your house and see how they do. I've tried it several times in these woods here just for tickles and giggles. Put a tomato plant out there, even tried a Seminole pumpkin plant one time, and they never made it. So you have to remember here, these things that we're growing in our backyard garden are not native plants. These are needy plants that have been hybridized and bred to give us a lot of good groceries per plant. So these backyard vegetable gardens that we create are artificial environments. They're not meant to simulate a forest. They're meant to be an artificial environment where we can provide these plants everything they need to give us maximal production. If we were trying to grow things that required no input at all, we would choose completely different varieties than we plant out here right now. But we have the ability to provide these inputs, so we plant things that can give us a lot more groceries as long as we give them those inputs. And speaking of inputs, lie number 3, the more you fertilize, the better off your plants are going to be. Now, important to note here, there are a few things we grow that seem impossible to over-fertilize. I think of onions. I've never over-fertilized onions. They seem like they can take all that you want to give them. Sweet corn is another one. You really can't give it too much nitrogen. I'm sure you can, but I've never seen a situation where I have given it too much. However, excess fertilization on other veggies, especially fruiting veggies, can cause production issues, and over-fertilization in general can cause some long-term problems with your soil. So for all the things planted in this plot right here, squash, cucumbers, peppers, tomatoes, all fruiting plants, we want to make sure they're nice and healthy, but we also want to be aware that there are consequences of over-fertilizing these plants. So if you give a tomato plant too much nitrogen, you're going to grow a big, beautiful tomato plant, but you're probably not going to make very many tomatoes. So we don't want to overload these fruiting vegetables with nitrogen, because that's going to just cause them to produce a bunch of leaves but not many fruits. And not only can it reduce the number of fruits you get, it can delay fruit maturity as well. And that's why I always recommend with fruiting vegetables, give them something balanced. It doesn't have to be equal across the board. It doesn't have to be the same number for nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, but close to the same number. There's something relatively balanced. It's going to keep you from giving it too much nitrogen and getting so much foliage and few fruits. Additionally, over-fertilization can have some negative implications long-term for your soil, especially if you use a lot of synthetic fertilizers over time. They can lower your pH lower than it needs to be. And I firsthand have seen issues in my garden plots when I used to get loads of chicken manure and put it down around here. You put too much in one spot, it can kind of create this anaerobic environment, and plants don't like it at all. So yes, you want to fertilize your plants, but you don't want to go overboard with it, because your soil is probably not going to be in that great a shape long term. Moving on to number 4, organic insecticides or pesticides are not harmful to bees. Now I want you to think about this for a second. If something you spray will kill a bad bug, why wouldn't it kill a bee? Now, some organic treatments may have less of an impact because they're not systemic and they're not getting inside the plant, or maybe they don't stay on the plants as long, but to say they're not harmful to them at all, I think is misleading. Now, also important to note here, even back in the day when we were using a lot of conventional non-organic insecticides around here, I don't think I ever did significant damage to our native bee population. We still had plenty of bees roaming around out here pollinating all our veggies. And I think on a scale like mine, we probably got a quarter-acre total of garden here in a very rural area. On a scale like mine, it's probably going to be hard for me to do any significant damage to bees just with this little bit of garden I've got. But it's something we want to be mindful of. We don't want to just be out here exterminating bees for no reason, for the sake of just getting maybe a few more tomatoes off our plants. So use whatever you feel comfortable using. I think for the sake of the bees, the most important consideration is when you're applying this stuff. Don't apply it while the bees are out roaming around. Wait till late in the evening, right before dark or at dark if you can still see, then do your spraying if you're going to do any spraying. So I think we should think more about the time at which we're applying these things than actually what we're applying, because the organic stuff could kill a bee in the middle of the daytime just as well as something conventional could. And lastly, number 5 on our list is this idea that companion planting is going to solve all these pest problems you may be having. So the idea here is if you plant certain plants next to other plants, those certain plants are going to give off certain smells or aromas that are going to deter pests from eating the plants you're wanting to harvest veggies from. Or in some cases, companion planting may refer to planting flowers or other trap crops, so the bad guys will flock to those and not to the veggies that you want to harvest. And all this might sound really good on paper, but the reality is the majority of the companion planting advice you'll find out there is completely anecdotal. I can tell you for a fact, squash bugs, leaf-footed bugs, and other persistent pests down here are not easily deterred. You can create whatever kind of obstacle you want to create for them there, but they're going to find a way. Additionally, I have found that you can quickly kind of go overboard with this companion planting thing, and what ends up happening is you get kind of a jungle or an overcrowded mess there that doesn't have very good airflow. So you have to be really careful when you're attempting to do this companion planting to give everything plenty of space. Otherwise, you've just got a big jumbled mess. So I think companion planting should be looked at something that adds beauty. I do a little bit of it myself, you know, mixing in some marigolds and some basil here and there. Definitely makes things look pretty, but don't rely on it completely for your pest management. It's not going to be a complete solution to reducing pest activity on your plants. So those are the 5 lies that kind of came to my mind as I was putting together this list today. Let me know what you think about those in the comments below. And if you've got additional ones you'd like to add to the list, let me know about those as well. And as always, you can find seeds for a lot of the stuff we grow around here on our website at lazydogfarm.com. And if you missed our last video talking about 40 different tomato trellising techniques, check that out right here. You're sure to find one that will work for you. So check that out, and we'll see you next time right here at Lazy Dog Farm.